Hi, it's Tuesday, December 7th, 2020. My name is Allie. The name of my channel is Allie's Big Toe because I thought it was catchy. TOE stands for Theory of Everything, and 90% of what I talk about on my YouTube channel is related to my life as a Jehovah's Witness. I was born in the religion. I left the religion mentally in 2015, and I was officially announced as no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses in 2019 after going through the judicial process where they informed me I had disassociated myself because I got baptized in a lake. And that's basically my story. And I started this channel thinking I was going to make a video, maybe two, just kind of getting my story off my chest, because part of my healing process, leaving this high control group, was hearing other people's stories, and then I wanted to share mine. And it's evolved into this thing that I do completely voluntarily because there is so much satisfaction and receiving a message or a phone call or a text or an email from someone who I've never met and probably never will meet, but another human who says, your video, your story, your experience helped me leave this organization, helped my wife leave this organization, helped my mom, my sister, fill in the blank. And it's such an honor to be able to be part of someone's journey to freedom. One of my favorite quotes is from Harriet Tubman, who said, "I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves." And I meditate on that quote quite a bit. Sometimes this feels like being part of some sort of underground railroad of sorts. It's humbling, and I do it during my free time whenever I possibly can. And I continue to do it for the reasons I just mentioned, that it's beautiful to hear people say that they were able to leave because of hearing my story. And I'm sure other people who do this type of activism can relate. So yes, 2 days ago on Sunday, my mom and I went to a church, and we were driving home, and I'm like, "Mom, let's make a little impromptu video. People want to see how you're doing." My mom is 75 years old. She was a very active Jehovah's Witness, one of the founding mothers. No, I was going to say founding fathers. One of the women used as a special pioneer from the society, because that's what they called themselves back then, sent here to Wisconsin to basically help this fledgling congregation. And she continued to be a Jehovah's Witness for 61 years until a couple years ago, when I started asking my own questions and including her in my searching. And I'm so thankful that she stuck with me, didn't shun me, sat through a lot of uncomfortable conversations, and came out on the other side a very happy, free woman in her mid-70s. So yes, it is possible for older ones to wake up and walk away and have a great life. So we made this little video, and in the comment section, quite a conversation began in the comment section. And by the way, to people who comment on my videos, especially ones who really take the time to help other people who are commenting and really spend your time writing heartfelt comments, thank you. I know that it takes time, it takes effort, and it doesn't go unnoticed. I don't personally have time to respond to everything. It is what it is, but I still appreciate everybody who takes the time. So someone had written, the Australian Royal Commission is what did it for me. 12 hours later, I shut the door. It was something like that. I'm paraphrasing. And the reason why I have to paraphrase is because this whole comment thread got deleted. And so it turned into like kind of a weird little detective situation last night, as I'm like, well, I didn't remove the comments. I don't remove comments in my comment section unless they're horrifically abusive, or using a ton of profanity, or just really, really ugly and nasty. Otherwise, if people disagree with me, I leave it up. Like, yeah. So after that person put the thing about how the Australian Royal Commission helped them wake up from this high control organization, corporation, publishing company, real estate flipping company cult, someone by the name of J period M period, said these are, they didn't write apostate driven lies, but they wrote, you're not getting the whole truth in the media, check out this. And it was a link to a YouTube video. Normally I don't click on, I try to click on the YouTube videos and then I'll watch like the first 10 seconds and determine, is this something I want to invest my time in watching, or I'll put it in the watch later file on my YouTube playlist. But it was a 30-minute video with a Dr. Holly Folk. I'm going to refer to her as Dr. Holly because if you say Holly Folk more than 5 times, you might say 2 other words. Holy. And yeah, so I watched this video with Dr. Holly, who is, let's see, let's pull up her LinkedIn right now. Dr. Holly Folk is the associate professor at Western Washington University. She has a PhD in religious studies, and she teaches comparative religion and research, new religious movements, and religion and globalization. Okay, so she's very credentialed, has lots of letters after her name. She's a professor and a doctor, and she gave this 30-minute presentation on a YouTube channel. Sorry, I have to pull it up. Called, or I wrote it down. Yeah, and I'm probably going to be reading from my notes quite a bit for this video. Just because I can't remember all of this. She gave this presentation with several other people, including the organizer, and his name is Massimo Introvigne. I'm saying this wrong. He's Italian. He's from Rome. He's an author, and his website is massimointrovigne.com. And that's another little rabbit hole that I spent some time in. So I watched the video, and what had happened in the comment section of my YouTube video with my mom was this JM person was going back and forth with another commenter. Thank you very much. Her name is Joy to You and Me, and she took quite a bit of her time to write some very good questions, critical thinking comments, which were immediately met with very legalese, short scripted comments by this JM character. I don't know if JM is a Bethelite, if he works for the legal department, if he's a governing body helper, or he doesn't sound like just your average Jehovah's Witness apologetic damage control Watchtower publisher. But what we do know at the very least is that Watchtower is watching apostate videos, and they are trolling and mulling around in the comment section. Okay, before I go into what I've learned or what I'm questioning, considering, I want to talk about agendas. And because that was one of the things that this Dr. Holly mentioned as regards to the Australian Royal Commission, case study number 29, and I believe case number 54, where they came up with their conclusions, and the Dutch and Belgium investigations into Jehovah's Witnesses. And she questions the agendas of these inquiries. And so you should always question the agenda of anybody you're listening to. Question my agenda. Number 1, I have made to date exactly $0 off of any of my activism work. I don't do this for money. I don't sell merch. I don't have an Etsy store. I do this because I love my freedom, and if I can assist someone else in finding their freedom, that's that's enough for me. I don't do this for money. Okay, so that's number one. And yeah, I mean, I just took some little notes, like asking myself, like, what is my agenda? Why do I make these videos? I like empowering individuals through my own story, that walking away from this high control organization. And I believe that the Watchtower is a cult. They prey on vulnerable people, hungry for love and community, and even spirituality, but in reality, they milk their members and they fleece their flock, and they're bullies, and they hurt people with their policies. They don't apologize for when they make mistakes, because we all make mistakes, and that's why asking for forgiveness is powerful. But they're above that, and they hurt a lot of people in the process. Children have been sexually abused. Wives have been silenced and shamed. Men have been emasculated in this organization, and humans have been dehumanized. Higher education is demonized, criticized, and critical thinking is outlawed if you are a Jehovah's Witness. Basically, this organization destroys human potential. And I am pro-human, so that is why I make these videos. So I asked myself these questions, okay, like, especially when it came to like Dr. Holly Folk, who is this person? How are they affiliated with Watchtower? Is she affiliated with Watchtower? What is the agenda here? And you should ask these questions about anything you ever watch and read yourself. Okay. I'm a little bit all over the place. This is not the typical video I normally make. Normally I just like take a walk and a talk and I talk about my feelings, but I feel like this is kind of important. And if any of the other activists out there want to take this information and clean it up and do a better job than I'm doing right now, please be my guest. Okay. I was talking about how Watchtower destroys human potential, but there's good news. Like Plato's cave, people are finding the courage to question the narrative, the governing body narrative, that is the Watchtower lawyery's language of new light, and start living a life of free will, even with the inhumane consequences of shunning. And then, you know, I just talked a little bit ago about how my mother, my 75-year-old mother, is living proof that you can do this. So now we have Watchtower moles and trackers going on apostate YouTube videos and leaving links to other YouTube videos. So who is JM? Who is Holly Folk? Who is Massimo Introvigne? What is the agenda? Who is Cesnur, or in Italian I think it would be pronounced Cesnur? C-E-S-N-U-R. That's the title of the video. International Conference, Jehovah's Witnesses and Their Opponents. And it was posted on YouTube October 15th, 2020. Okay. Now I'm going to start with Dr. Holly's presentation. She starts by prefacing her presentation by saying that she understands sexual crimes are terrible. Then she says something interesting at the 1 minute and 19 mark. She says, quote, "I hope victims receive justice from society." Isn't that interesting wording? Society. Why do we kick the can down the road? Society should give justice to the victims. Why wouldn't we demand that Watchtower gives justice to their own victims? Then she says at the 1 minute 35 mark that we should direct our energies efficiently so people can be brought to justice. Quote, "We can't afford to misdirect our attention and to use groups as scapegoats." So essentially she goes off onto this tangent about how Watchtower is being used as a scapegoat. And what I read or heard between the lines of that is that they're innocent and they've been misrepresented by the media. Does that sound familiar? Can I hear a Stephen Lett talk about how these are all apostate-driven lies? Then she makes a premature, weird apology and says that some of what she'll say might trigger some people. In other words, discount the victims. There's a lot of doublespeak and gaslighting language, in my opinion, in her presentation, and it's difficult to unravel a lot of that. But again, this is my theory of everything when it comes to this. She starts out by basically discrediting the Atlantic Monthly, where they published an article entitled A Secret Database of Child Abuse. And if I remember correctly, I believe Mark O'Donnell was very instrumental in participating in that article. And then she shows on the screen a bunch of other news articles. For example, the BBC had a show that spotlighted the secret database that Jehovah's Witness organization keeps. And then she says this at the 3-minute and 18 mark. She says, I feel this is very unfortunate, these news articles. I feel that there is an awful lot that is very deliberately misleading. Again, it sounds very similar to the language that we hear on JW broadcast from leadership and helpers to leadership. So this is the point of her presentation, to tell you, the viewer, why the JW organization is being misrepresented as a pedophile protecting organization in the media. And you should believe her because she's a doctor. She's smarter than you. And you should trust her because she's a doctor, and you should trust her because she's independent. Do not trust lay people like me, people who have grown up in this religion, in this organization, who were almost completely pickled in it. And do not trust people on the ground level, people who've heard literally dozens, if not hundreds, of stories, firsthand accounts of survivors of this horrific crime of sexually abusing children and raping adults, whom Watchtower turns their backs on and does not apologize to or redress. For example, I would recommend that you go back and listen to an interview Cliff the Fifth, JW Fifth, did with Barbara Anderson. It was a very good interview. Okay, so now Dr. Holly starts with Australia in 2015, case study report number 29. And she goes through these statistics, and this reminds me of a video I watched yesterday by ex-JW critical thinker, JT and Lady C, where he talks about how numbers can't lie, but you can lie with numbers. And Dr. Holly does this pretty spectacularly to the untrained listener. You're like, oh yeah, that they did exaggerate it, and oh yeah, it's really not that bad. And she goes through how, for example, in the Australian Royal Commission, they only interviewed 2 victims. So somehow that means that it's not a big problem because they only interviewed 2 victims. Then she defends the organization for not being guilty of institutional abuse because she gives 3 reasons why the Watchtower or JW.org is not guilty of institutional abuse. Number 1, she says that Jehovah's Witnesses do not have a set clergy like the Catholics. Well, they might not have a pope, but they do have an octopope. They have 8 popes, and they absolutely do have an apostolic head, ecclesiastical governing body, board of directors, pope, whatever you want to call them. It's all legalese. They just keep rebranding and renaming themselves to just stay one step ahead of the law. She says that they don't have a bureaucracy of lifelong people. Yes, they do. They're called Bethelites. She says number 2, they don't have children's programming. Yes, they do. They have Caleb and Sophia videos, which are homophobic and program young people to be magazine pushers. And they have even better programming, the kind I grew up with. My book of Bible stories. Lots of programming. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, this was one of my favorite. Of course, we have Jezebel. I had fun thinking about her falling out of the window, being devoured by dogs. But, these were the pictures I grew up with, and these are the pictures I've heard from many people why they have nightmares thinking about Armageddon being swallowed up by the earth. This was one that I spent many, many times staring at in the Kingdom Hall during meetings, looking at the woman holding a tiny baby in the flood. And if you are, maybe you're an agnostic or an atheist and you're listening to someone like me who does still identify as a believer in Jesus and the God of the Bible, and you're saying like, well, the flood is in the Bible. Yes, but I still wouldn't show my child this book. It does something to you. So that was example number 2 that Holly gave. There's no child programming with Jehovah's Witnesses. And then her third reason why they are not guilty of institutional abuse is because, quote, Jehovah's Witnesses basically operate as a lay organization. So what is Watchtower doing here? They are creating loopholes for why they are not negligent or culpable to these accusations. And of course, if you watch the whole Australian Royal Commission and the aftermath where they went over the report with Sphinx and the other guy, they kept saying, well, there are no mandatory reporting laws in Australia, so we didn't break the law. We didn't break the law. And that reminds me of Matthew 5:41, which I don't have a Bible here. I have a Bible over here. Let's use the New World Translation. Matthew 5:41, which says, I really used to like this Bible because I have the reasoning book attached in the back of it. And so when the Silver Bible came out, I was kind of bummed because it's like, I spent all this money on this Bible. Matthew 5:41 says, and if someone under authority impresses you into service for a mile, go with him 2 miles. And that was something I never really understood with Watchtower is they would say, well, the laws aren't mandatory, reporting isn't mandatory, but if you claim to be Christian and these are the principles that you're telling your membership to live by, why wouldn't you as the leadership at the very least do that? Going back to the video with Dr. Holly, at the 11-minute mark, she tries to dilute, minimize, and repackage all the statistics from the Australian Royal Commission. So lots of logical fallacies. And I guess I would have this question for JM or any other Watchtower person listening to this video. If you believe in mandatory reporting of child sex abuse, why do you need a government to make it a law for you to do it? Just do it. Okay, then moving on to the shunning issue. At the 15-minute mark, she says, quote, it is not the place of a government to intervene in the choices that consenting adults make. Again, very interesting verbiage. It sounds good at face value, but why should I, for example, be shunned by my entire community, my blood family, for a choice that I made when I was a minor? I got baptized right when I had turned 15 years old, and there are people who've gotten baptized as young as like 9, 10 years old, even younger. But let's just say as a median age 12, 13, why should an adult be shunned for a choice that they made when they were 12 or 13 years old? Again, you were not a consenting adult when you became Watchtower's property. Then at the 17-minute mark, Dr. Holly says, quote, Jehovah's Witness organization supports the bringing forth of criminal complaints to law enforcement by people. They do not think that members should be censored for any type of criminal complaint before the law. Now, probably if I was on the phone with Robert Hendricks or any other Watchtower representative, they would like, technically that's true. Like, they would never dissuade you from making a criminal complaint, but there is so much censorship in that organization. If you're watching this video, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Minute 27:45, she says, quote, she gives all of these lines of evidence for why Jehovah's Witnesses are not, quote, a closed group, and how it's inaccurate to call Jehovah's Witnesses a closed group. So essentially what she's trying to do at this part of the video is show that they are not a cult. And so she says, closed groups is a typology. It's sort of a generic description. It's a sociological paradigm which many sociologists think is overdrawn. So she uses a lot of words here. And then she says that some families in the Jehovah's Witness group are closed, but that doesn't make the Jehovah's Witness as a group closed. And then she smiles and laughs and tells us that she had pizza and a beer with Jehovah's Witnesses, so that proves that they're not a closed group because they do business with society, they work in society, they mingle with society, and she had a beer and a pizza with the Jehovah's Witness, so that means they're not a closed group. I'm sorry to inform you, Dr. Holly, that they absolutely are a closed group. I lived it. I was not allowed to have friends because they were worldly. I did not participate in anything that is part of the general culture here, i.e. holidays, birthdays, etc., etc. And I was okay with that as a kid because that was all I knew, because I lived in a closed group. Does a fish know that it's in water or in a tank when it's in it? No. Okay. So she established that she's had casual dealings, if not friendships, with Jehovah's Witnesses, which I would say does not make her neutral or independent, but nothing is. So I'm okay with that. So here's my suggestion to Dr. Holly: is go through the indoctrination process, go through the Bible study course, Watchtower course, get baptized, get love bombed, forge friendships, get to really, really like people, and then decide that you don't want to do it anymore. You don't want to be a Jehovah's Witness. And like, let's say you submit your letter of resignation, you want to disassociate. All of those people will not be most, if not all of those people will not be your friends anymore. Okay, then she talks about agenda at the 37-minute mark. She says, think about who is benefiting from this anti-cult, anti-JW campaign, i.e. people like me, or the Russian government, or lawyers who represent abuse victims. She says there's a huge financial interest in driving the demonization of the Jehovah's Witnesses. For example, and then she gives examples on personal injury lawyers. Well, it's sad that these lawyers have to do what they do, but they wouldn't have to do what they do if there weren't victims. So I don't understand what point she was trying to make. Basically just portraying the Jehovah's Witness organization as the victim in all of this. They're the victim of the media, they're the victim of the apostates, they're the victim of the anti-cult groups, and poor Watchtower. Okay. And I think that basically, then she said thanks for watching, and that ended her presentation. And then I realized that there was about 6 or 7 other contributors. I didn't watch all the videos yet, but I did watch the last one where Massimo does his little thanks for participating in this, and we're doing this for freedom of religion. And I think that is why it's so difficult to really... Watchtower knows this. They hide behind the veil of being this religion, and they're not. They're a company, and they're hemorrhaging members, and members equal money, especially old ones who have large 401ks and estates and this and that, and they don't want to lose that. It's about the bottom line. So I guess that basically kind of concludes this video. I will put the link to this channel with the CENSUR, Chensor. And what's interesting about that, so then I went down this other little rabbit hole on what is an NGO? What's the purpose of lobbyist groups? I mean, I had a general idea, like, you hear about lobbyists in Washington who live on K Street and basically, stick their nose in everything and have their clients who it's legalized bribery, essentially. And then you have these groups who, here's a perfect example. Watchtower, I have a question for you. Why would you use this? Because if Watchtower got caught paying Dr. Holly Folk to give this presentation, it would completely discredit all of her words. But if they use a lobbyist group or this NGO, Chensor, it creates smoke and mirrors and loopholes, and it makes it a little more difficult to connect the dots.